All right, everyone doing pretty good?
Yep.
Good, thank you, a few people. All right, I've started, actually, I'm almost finished grading your in-class essays. I have started sending some of you my feedback. I haven't put in the grades into Canvas yet, but I will send you an email just letting you know what my basic comments were and then what the grade is. Because I'm not in my campus office, I can't scan the pages and then send them out to you in the form of like a PDF. Unfortunately, they just won't let me on campus because they don't want me interfering with anything. I'm not essential personnel, which is fine. But I will have those finished by the end of the day to you. So if you haven't gotten yours yet, hang in there. And I will send you an email by the end of the day just letting you know my basic comments. And if you have any questions, if you want to know more specifics, let me know and I can get those to you. Any questions about the in-class essay or what you can expect? I'm grading them pretty easy because I have other things to do and it was an in-class essay, so it's not going to be the greatest thing in the world. But I hope that you are able to take that feedback and put it towards your final paper. So has everyone submitted their annotations for today or anyone still waiting to? It's okay if it's late. I left it open so that way you can still submit it even if it's afternoon today. I just want to make sure that everyone has it done just so that way you're on top of the work you need to be doing for the next week or so.
My Word is not working right now, so I submitted it through Google Docs.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
And it should still be open later on in the day, so if it does wind up working, you can always submit it there too. Because
Okay, yeah.
it's just easier for me to leave comments and stuff on Canvas than it is in Google Docs, but either way, I've got it and I'll make sure that you get credit for it.
So for the other secondaries, can we pull it from like the non-library resources?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to pull it from
like pictures from online and stuff that you may like refer to, like.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're doing like political cartoons or even just basic like political photographs, I should say too, where you've got pictures of like campaign rallies or whatever, you can absolutely use those.
Okay, just want to make sure.
I definitely want to see at least 2 of your 9 sources for annotated bibliography should be images that you think you're going to use for your final paper. I'll allow up to 3, but you don't want to go too much more than that because you don't want to be analyzing so many images when you only have 7 pages with which to work. Remember, for your first paper, you wrote 3.5 pages on 1 image, so you shouldn't need more than 2 or 3 for your final paper. Less is probably more, but obviously in some cases you might need a 3rd one just to kind of prove your point. I actually want to show, I was doing a little bit more digging around this morning in this database that I saw on the library page. Let me show you. Cool, so this is that. So I was under this research guide, minimize that. I was just kind of digging through and I went to companies and ads where it says, find information on background, competitors, financials, nonprofits, and private companies. I just clicked on that, seeing what would come up. And I noticed that this thing down here, where was it? So under ads. So I clicked on ads here, find examples of current or historical ads, as well as how much individual companies spend on different kinds of advertising. I clicked on that. Then I discovered this thing called moat.com that you can probably also access from your own computers if you need to. But I clicked on this, and it's really interesting because you can just search by the brand name, and it'll pull up a lot of ads. I'm not sure how old or new they are, but it pulls up a lot, at least of the most recent ads they've done. So for example, I think it's George is looking at Sky Vodka. So let's kind of click on Sky Vodka and search for that. And I've got 102 ads that come up, and I can kind of dig through and see they've had a lot talking about it being born in San Francisco. I think this one might be, I think that's a drag queen model. So maybe they're trying to appeal to queer neighborhoods in San Francisco or wherever. But you can kind of like search for the brand name and then kind of scroll through and see what comes up. These are all online ads. So they're not necessarily magazine ads. So the audience might be a little bit different, but it can give you an idea of what their current trends are in terms of their advertising. So let me do something else. I know people are doing, so we've got Sky Vodka. Someone's doing Postmates. Let me see if I can search for them. Here we go. So Postmates, and even all these ads as well. A lot of them are like coupon ads, so they may not be super helpful, but these are online ads and they might help you get a sense of what they're, get a sense of what it is that they are trying to do. So like, for example, down here, you know, this guy holding two sandwiches like he's holding babies. When your friends are thinking second child and you're thinking second dinner, ha ha ha, so funny. But this can be really helpful for those of you who are looking at different companies or different brand names and want to search for what they've been doing maybe more recently or within the last couple years. This could be really helpful for you in terms of finding ads that are really relevant to what you're researching. So this is moat.com if you want to use it, M-O-A-T, search by brand name. And then it'll put over on the side here other related companies as well. So it also got some here for like Uber Eats. Pulls up all these great ads and everything that you can kind of look through, and really helpful stuff there. So I hope you find that helpful if you're looking for those kinds of ads. Is anyone having trouble finding images currently, either advertisements or political cartoons or anything like that?
I'm not having trouble, but for as far as like newspaper articles, those are fine, right? Like not newspaper articles, but like articles online by like the New York Times or.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Especially if you're doing something more recent. Like I know a few people who are doing like you're doing the Hong Kong protest. I know Auden's doing the coronavirus. I know a few people are doing Postmates, Uber Eats. Those may not have peer-reviewed articles written on them just because they are so new. So you might need to pull from newspapers like New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal. I send that media bias chart out if you want to look at any of those publications and see what they have. Those could also be really helpful, especially for you, Annabella, Bella, if you want to look at Foreign Policy magazine. They usually have some pretty good articles and stuff there as well. I also,
Okay,
for those of
awesome.
you, I'm sorry.
Oh, I said awesome. Thank you.
Sweet, no problem. For those of you who are also interested, you also might want to see, if you're looking for news photography or more recent photographs that are award-winning photographs. The Pulitzer Prize for photography is a big award, one of the biggest awards in the field. And you can look through and kind of see what it is that's won awards recently. So obviously this past year, it was about the famine in Yemen. This tends to be, the feature of photography tends to be more international kind of news, but they also have breaking news photography. At least I can find that. And that usually tends to be more current and related to domestic events. So breaking news photography. It's gonna take forever to pull up, I'm sure. Cool. So I sent, actually, so one of your classmates is writing about immigration. So I guess last year, Reuters won their Pulitzer Prize for breaking news photography for their pictures they took of the caravan that was coming through Central America and Mexico to the southern US border. And a lot of these pictures became really famous, if you might remember, early last year, especially this one right here. So if she's writing about immigration and wants to find photos that have been used in the news and compare them against like maybe how the issue is being presented in political cartoons, this could be really helpful. There's some other stuff here. We've got Philippines, some stuff on refugees, Ferguson, Missouri. So you might find some really helpful stuff there in terms of the Pulitzer Prize winning photography. You might not, it's just up to you, but I figured that'd be a good place to start if you're looking for really good, famous news images there. Questions about images or photographs? Everyone's finding those pretty well? Cool, great. So the next thing I want to do is I want to look at some of your annotated bibliographies, because the handful I looked at before class today looked really good. A handful of people did annotations, a handful just did notes. I wanted more annotations, but it's fine if you just did notes, because I still want you taking notes on the sources that you're reading, because that'll be helpful for you when you're writing your paper. But for your annotated bibliography, just remember, you're going to be writing, you're going to get the MLA citation of the source that you're using, and then you'll give about a paragraph long description of the article's argument and what their thesis is, what their evidence is, and then about a sentence or two at the end saying how it's helpful for you and how it might work towards your argument, or how it's not helpful for you and you like found it and it kind of relates to your subject, but you're not going to use it anyway. It's totally fine. You can also, if you find a source that you don't agree with, you can absolutely use that source, especially if you want to work it into your counter argument. You don't have to agree with every source you choose. I know I don't when I'm doing research. But if you find something, just for an example, if someone writing about immigration finds an article about how we need to shut down all borders across all countries and shouldn't accept any new immigrants at all whatsoever, that person writing about immigration might say like, well, this is a really extreme view and I disagree with it. Here's how we should look at the issue instead. It's okay for you to disagree with your sources. In fact, I encourage it because it shows that you're actually having a conversation with other people writing about this issue instead of just saying the same thing that everyone else has been saying for years and years or months and months. So just want to look at a couple of your classmates' examples. And a lot of these I thought were really good. I didn't notice anything super glaring that I was like, this is awful and bad. Whose is this? This is, okay, I gotta move that down. I wanted to look, I know, at a couple. I remember I looked at Ryan's because Ryan's I thought were really good. So Ryan did notes. Let me see. So Ryan doesn't have her annotations yet, but that's okay because she took really good notes and she's got her works cited list right here. And basically all she's gonna have to do when she starts making her annotations is just go right after these citations and start typing her paragraph about the summary of the article that she's citing here. But her notes have really helped her with that because she already has the quotes that she found the most important. This one right here is about immigration and COVID-19. So she seems to have chosen the most important quotes there. So when she goes to write her paragraph summarizing what this article is about, it'll be really easy for her to put that in her own words and then write about whether or not that's important for her research. And you'll notice too, so Ryan has 2 sources from the New York Times, which is great. They've got really great coverage there. Same for most major newspapers in the country. And then I believe she also has 2 peer-reviewed journals. In fact, I'll scroll down to the works site page because it'll be easier to see. So we have New York Times, Social Science and Medicine. I'm assuming it's a peer-reviewed journal, and also it's very recent, just in 2019. And then JGen Intern Med, I'm not sure what that is, but also it seems to be more recent as well, 2015 or so. So all these sources are pretty recent, which means they're pretty relevant, and they're from pretty reputable sources, I would imagine. I haven't double-checked all these, but it seems like these are pretty good, helpful sources for their research. So again, there's no annotations yet, but the notes that she's taken will be really helpful when she finally sits down and write those paragraphs. And again, I'm not expecting for a longer annotation than about a paragraph or so, about half a page. You definitely don't want to go more than a page. You want to make it as concise as possible. And then someone who I thought did really good annotations, can't remember who it was. I think it might be Maddie, actually. Was it Maddie? Well, we're gonna look at Maddie's anyway. So Maddie's got her citation right up here. Is from the New Yorker, very reputable magazine. How delivery asked me put your favorite restaurant out of business. And then just about a paragraph explaining what it's about and how it might be good for her to use. So this article shows the growth of the at-home food delivery industry and explains that while the service was originally meant to supplement restaurant profits, it is actually harming them. To support this claim, Dunn said in 2016, delivery transactions made up about 7% of total U.S. restaurant sales. In a research report published last June, analysts at Morgan Stanley predicted the number could reach 40% of all restaurant sales. This source seemed to be reliable because it took into account data from a wide variety of companies, from, for example, Uber Eats, Seamless, and Grubhub, and presented feedback from various restaurants and CEOs. Pretty good summary. The only thing I think is missing here is an exact explanation of why they think the food delivery industry is hurting the restaurant profits. But otherwise, solid opening sentence in terms of summarizing what the article is about. Really good choice of quote from the article that kind of makes sense of what the material is they're presenting forward. And then she ends at the end, explains why that this seems to be a reliable source or why it's good for her. So something like this is really good. You always want to kind of explain how they get to their conclusion, like how they ultimately explain what their thesis is. But otherwise, this is a really good example to follow. And of course, she also has stuff from the International Journal of Behavioral Nutrition and Physical Activity, really relevant, really reliable journal, peer-reviewed journal. AdBeat, I'm less familiar with this one, but this seems also like it's pretty reliable as well, especially because they're looking specifically at ads for Blue Apron, HelloFresh, etc. And then Journal of Advertising, again. peer-reviewed journal, really helpful there. So as long as you're finding really reliable sources, I don't think you'll have a hard time summarizing your sources, because all of these writers are usually pretty good at explaining what it is that they're arguing for and how they're going to argue it. If you wind up reading an article and you only read a handful of pages, then you're like, hey, this doesn't apply to me. I don't want to use this in my paper, but it still relates to your topic. Include it and explain just why it doesn't relate to your paper. We can sort through that later, and you can cut that out later. But I'd rather you have too many sources than not have enough later on. Same thing if I want to get my train of thought back. It'll come back to me. Same thing if you're looking at books. If you're looking at books and you don't want to read the entire book, in fact, you shouldn't read the entire book, but there's just one chapter or a few pages about the topic you're writing about, just read those few pages and summarize those few pages. You don't need to summarize the entire book. I think I sent a couple of pages of books to a few of you. If you just want to summarize those few pages and explain what the argument is and whether or not it's helpful to you, totally fine. Feel free to use that. But I don't want you to feel like you have to read 200, 300 pages to understand the full argument of a book. Any questions about the annotations or what I'm expecting for you? This is going to be a pretty short class today because I want you to use whatever time we have left to kind of search for more sources, search for more images if you need them. I know on Monday there's an optional assignment, and the reason it's optional is because one, it wasn't on the original syllabus, and two, it's because I know you have a lot of other stuff going on in your lives. But if you want to, you can submit 2 more sources and annotations on Monday, and I'll be happy to look over them and tell you, hey, this looks really great. You're on your way there. Or, oh, maybe this one, doesn't quite fit. You might want to cut that out of your final paper, but include it in your annotated bibliography for next week. If you do look at the 2 sources for next week, that'll give you 4 plus 2. You should have 6 sources. You'll only need about 3 more before you turn in your final annotation project at the end of next week. So even though you've got a lot going on this weekend, I'm sure you have a lot of catching up to do with other classes, I recommend trying to look at 2 more sources, just so that way it's less work for you to have to do next week when everything's due in full. And for the annotated bibliography, I'm expecting a format like this, kind of like what Jack has here, where the citation and then the summary after that. Any questions about the annotated bibliography project? It should be pretty easy altogether as long as you're finding sources and images that are really helpful to you. And again, 2 of the sources for your annotated bibliography can be images. So you just put the citation for the image and then explain why that image is helpful for you. In fact, I think Jackie does that if it pulls up. Yeah, so let's see if this pulls up. So she chose this image here. She's gonna be writing about it in her paper. And then in her annotation, she just talks about what the image is, what it says, and then how it might be helpful for her towards the end. This source is beneficial to the essay because it provides an example of Banksy's work that supports his resistance against commercial success for street artists and also comments on the people who purchase his art. So that's all you need for an image like that. Describe the image and then briefly explain how you might use it in your paper. Any questions or concerns? Remember, the annotated bibliography was originally due for next Wednesday. I'll have it be, you can turn it in as late as Friday afternoon. But if you turn it in a little bit earlier, I might take into consideration giving you a few extra bonus points just for being on top of work and submit it early. But I'm not going to penalize you if it's a little bit later than what we originally scheduled for, because I know that you've got a whole kind of schedule shift up from the last couple weeks or so. So hang in there. It'll be okay. Like I said, we're going to end class early today, just that way if you want to use the extra time to, what's the word I'm looking for? You want to use that extra time to search for sources or search for ads from those resources I showed you, you can absolutely do that. But otherwise, I think that ends what I have to talk about today. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. If you want to stick around and look through some databases or sources together, I'm happy to do that. Otherwise, though, you are free to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Like I said, I'll get those comments back to you for your in-class essays as soon as possible.
Sorry, I can't leave the meeting for some reason. It's like not working.
It's okay. I'll end it. That'll make it easier.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.